Hello everyone and welcome. In this short video we're going to look at the difference between suppression and repression to help you prevent burnout when you're using Wash Your Web. Okay, so suppression and repression are actually defense mechanisms, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so what are defense mechanisms?
Defense mechanisms are little techniques, tricks, if you like, that your mind can use to keep stress away from your consciousness. So I'll illustrate with a few examples.
Okay.
My favourite defense mechanism is humour, because when you laugh with people, then you're letting off a bit of steam, you're feeling together with people, and you're looking at life in a very positive way.
So true.
So true. Now there are dozens and dozens and dozens of defense mechanisms. Another one is called displacement. And so for this one, I want you to imagine that there's a university essay that you really should be writing, but just at that moment when you sit down to write, all of a sudden you think you could go to the bathroom, or you could get up and do some eating, or at that moment you could be checking your feeds, okay? And what's happening is, because you don't want to do this, the assignment, that's a stress, your mind finds other ways to make you feel good. My third example is called acting out, and this is not a good defense mechanism. I want you to imagine that you've just had a terrible argument with your partner, and you've decided, stuff it, I'm going to wipe myself out tonight, I'm getting drunk. Now, getting drunk means that you'll forget about the argument, and you will feel better because alcohol tastes good and it makes you feel a bit floaty for a while, but you're not dealing with the issue. You're not dealing with the problem will still be there. So it's a defense mechanism. It makes you feel good for a short time, but it's an immature defense mechanism.
Okay, great. So let's look at some definitions now. What is suppression?
So suppression is a defense mechanism in which you shelve a strong emotion.
Shelve strong emotions.
So you are aware that you are experiencing an emotion, but you don't have time to deal with it. And so you say, I will deal with this later, I will just shelve it for now. And it makes you feel better because you're not dealing with it now. But you will only get to feel better when you do deal with it later.
And repression?
Repression is very different. Repression means pushing an emotion down or pushing an emotion away so that it's away from your consciousness. And you bottle it up. You bottle it up so that it can't get out, so that you don't have to deal with it. And you feel better because you think, the emotion's gone. I'm not feeling that. It's a bit like denial. But the truth is that repressed emotions can fester with other repressed emotions, and they can lead to these complex feelings inside that are very hard to unravel. Not healthy.
Okay, so some examples.
Some examples. So we'll use anger as an example because anger is an emotion that we understand. Anger and suppression. I want you to imagine that you're talking to your boss, and right at that moment you're feeling very unsupported by your boss and your whole organization. But because you're talking to your boss, you don't want to express that right then. So you take that emotion and you shelve it.
Shelve it.
You say, I'm going to deal with that later. And then when you get home, you're punching a punching bag, you're talking to your partner, you're exercising. All the time you're thinking, I'm angry with that boss. And what you're doing is you're getting out the energy of that anger, and you're also working through that anger at that point in time. And when you work through it like that and deal with it, that's what makes you feel better.
And repression?
Anger and repression. We'll take the example of a young boy that grows to be an angry young man. He thinks he's angry at the world, at society, at the system, and he ends up in therapy, and therapy actually shows that he is actually still angry at his dad, who used to belt him a lot. But at the moment, what is he doing? He's throwing bricks at police stations. It makes him feel better in the short term, but it's repressed anger, anger that he has pushed down and is not confronted, that's driving all of this. So that takes time to work out, to work through repressed anger.
So there's really a big difference between the two of them.
Suppression is conscious, it's thinking, it's here and now, it's being aware, and it's dealing with your emotions. Repression is largely unconscious. It creates this whole mass of tangled, complex emotions that become toxic, and it becomes long-term because you're not dealing with your emotions.
So when we're using the Wash Your Web tool, you talk a lot about using suppression.
We talk about using suppression. In fact, it's actually coupled with another mature defense mechanism called anticipation. Anticipation builds the shelf in your mind before you shift. Suppression shelves the emotions so that you can deal with it later. And then after you shift, you can deal with the emotions so that they don't have to hang around you. You can let them go.
Okay, so I hope that this has given you a bit of an understanding of the difference between suppression and repression. Take care and look, do all that you can to prevent vicarious trauma and burnout. Thank you so much for the work you do. We really appreciate it.
Please take care.